Wait. Cam Heyward said what? He did? And he aimed it at who? That's the way this is going to go, my friends. Listen, I kind of hinted in your direction that I've heard from a couple of players in recent days regarding this Aaron Rodgers situation, quarterback situation in general. And I am not at liberty to share what they shared, and I hope you'll respect that. But Cam is a big enough deal, and I mean that in every way. Cam's just a big dude. He's also the big man in that world, in the Steelers world. He's the biggest man in that locker room. He's the unquestioned leader of the defense, arguably unquestioned leader of the team, since the offense really doesn't have one of those. And Cam had stuff to say today. I want to make sure that I don't get him misquoted here. Like I said, he's a big dude, right? And what Cam said was, either be a Pittsburgh Steeler or you don't. And he was talking about, of course, Aaron Rodgers there. And what he meant was, listen, just do this, sign here, or don't. But don't be stringing along a franchise like the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you think about it, that's going to be logically a common sentiment in that world. It just is. I ain't doing that darkness retreat was the whole thing. I don't need any of that crap. Who's that sound like? Either you want to be a Steeler or you don't. It's simple. That's the pitch. Yeah. That's it. This is not, and I've been using this comparison point a lot lately. This isn't the Jets or the Giants or the Jaguars or the Falcons or, whoever these various nondescript nothing NFL franchises are that you routinely see get caught up in crap like this. You should be, first off, to be clear on this, if you're the Steelers, way more prepared, kind of a separate subject. You should have had a quarterback plan in place for a long time, meaning not as of last Monday. But that doesn't mean that the players have to go along with something like this. That doesn't mean that the players have to say, gee, I hope he signs. I hope we're good enough for him. It's just, it's a lousy look. Now, Cam also went on to say, and I'm going to find again the exact words here so that I don't, get this wrong in any way. He said, as far as Mason Rudolph being in the fold, Mason proved a lot. No, I already got it wrong. Cam said Mason proved to a lot of Steelers fans, not just this past year, but last year when he stepped in for us, that he was ready. If we don't sign a quarterback and you go into the year with Mason, I think we feel good about it. Excited to have him back. He's a guy for the locker room, and a lot of guys vibe with him. To bring him back as part of the group is special. Now, I told you guys this late in the 2023 season, that Mason had the room on his side, and a lot of the interpretation of that naturally was going to be that I'm referring just to the offense or the guys in the huddle. And I was clarifying even back then, no. He's got the main guys on the defensive side with him. They see what he does, they value what he does, and they value the impact that he had on them late in that season, by having a high snap count and everything else and keeping them off the field and, putting up points, details like that. So there's more to this. You're going to have to trust me on that. There really is. Now, whether or not, Omar's listening, whether or not Mike Tomlin's listening, whether or not Art Rooney is listening, or they even care if they are listening, we're going to see about that. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Chris Halleck.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
What really matters on this program is that Fat Tony finally made it to catch a live stream. Congrats to Fat Tony, his family, his friends, his neighbors, and everybody for making it in. We love you, Tony. Joined now by Chris. What's up, Chris?
Hey, how you doing? Quarterback watch again.
What's that?
Quarterback watch again. Here we go.
Well, I mean, maybe. We don't have to do that. We go where they go. We go where Fat Tony goes is what I'm saying.
I've been watching Darius Slay film all day long. So
have you really?
I have been. Chalk Talk coming later on DKPittsburghSports.com. So yeah, that's been my focus today. It's been Darius Slay, not Aaron Rodgers. Thankfully.
Yeah, I think people think that we obsess over this stuff.
No.
Like that we're sitting around going, quarterback. No. Like, I've spent the better part of my past 24 hours working on a project on the Pirates' finances. There's nothing even to do with football. Actually, it doesn't even have to do with sports. But I'm not sitting around going, oh, no, Now, maybe in the athletes' world, they're doing that to an extent because it does affect them. It does influence them. And what they want, what we hear constantly that they want, is a known, dedicated commodity. And the one thing that they can say unequivocally about Mason is that he's going to give it everything he's got, because he was doing that even when he wasn't playing. He was doing that even when he wasn't getting a helmet. He wasn't even the backup, and he was still giving them everything he got. They want to know if they're going to put it all in, that the guy playing the most important position on the team is going to do that. Does that kind of feel like when you heard Cam's comments, where this is headed?
It didn't surprise me at all whenever I watched Cam's podcast and really listened to what he said. And I played it back and I listened to it again because I like to hear like the tone. I like to hear the way things are spoken, because sometimes you can read things and like the words, for example, the words that he said about Rodgers sound more harsh when you're reading them than the way he actually said it. He almost said it almost nonchalantly. It was just like, I'm not doing that darkness, retreat crap. Like he kind of, but when talking about Mason, you could hear like there's a lot of respect for what Mason Rudolph did whenever he was with the team. There's a reason why 2019 Mason Rudolph.
Sorry, Chris, just to make a point here, before he got into the starting.
Yep.
Just to make that point. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I'm just saying there's a reason why you saw a big difference between 2019 Mason Rudolph and 2023 Mason Rudolph. And it wasn't because of NFL games. Like, let's just put it that, because he didn't play in 20. He played what? How many games in 21? Like the tie against Detroit, it was very, very little. And then he didn't even get a helmet all of 2022. So it wasn't because he was just, getting this regular action or coming in the fourth quarter games because the Steelers are blowing teams out, because they never blow teams out. And it wasn't because the NFL has a minor league system where he can go and play games there. It was because of his own hard work on the inside and doing what he could do to learn in the film room. And I'll tell you what, film study, and that's another thing that I'm learning about this whole Darius Slay thing. Film study can do wonders for a player. Even whenever, you lose a step or you're not even playing games, film study can do a whole lot. And I think the 23 version of Mason Rudolph is a big reason why. Yeah.
And Mason would be the first to tell you that a lot of the work that he did in preparing himself wasn't just film study of like he can describe, for example, the tie with Detroit down to I think he can name every person in the crowd at this point from the way studying that film so much, because that's all he had for 3 years, right?
Yeah.
But he also would study himself. He'd study himself with other people who'd be critical. That was how a part of how he got rid of the whole happy feet thing. It's about the work, and it's about the work that's put in day to day in the facility. But then to have that validated when he went out onto the field, that was different, because again, that's a validation for everybody who's putting in that work. That there's nothing. You see this in sports all the time. It's not just football. It's not just the Steelers. But when a backup comes in, or somebody comes off the bench in baseball, or some fourth liner scores a big goal in hockey, and you say that's because we know that player put the work in. Did you see the Penguins' reaction the other day when Ryan Graves finally scored his first goal?
I do.
The bench just exploded as if they won the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
Why? Because they know how hard Ryan's worked all year.
Mm-hmm.
And the effort, and then all the times he was a healthy scratch and everything, and they went nuts for him. Yeah. You can actually see it in the background of the photograph. Kevin Hayes is like leaping to the ceiling. That's what these guys wanted to see for Mason. That's what they saw for Mason. They believe in him, and I think that's a really cool thing. Now, as far as Rodgers goes, I'm going to say this again, but just for a different purpose. This isn't the Steelers' world, and no player, nobody in that room, shy of Chris Boswell, is going to have a better sense for what the Steelers would be comfortable with. They're not that team that's going to sit around begging for somebody. I believe I have somebody asking here from Bark Z. DK, have you heard or seen any players on the current roster trying to recruit Aaron Rodgers? If not, shouldn't that speak to Tomlin and Omar? Now, I don't know how many players on the roster would have had background with him, to be fair. Can you think of anybody?
I cannot. I honestly cannot think of anybody.
Yeah, so I don't know that would apply, but no.
But
the
I also,
answer for me is no.
Yeah, but I also think that Rodgers recruiting him is different than it is for almost any other player, because the reason why Cam Heyward said that whole darkness retreat thing was because the last time he was trying to decide, he literally went on a 4-day darkness retreat in which he was like enclosed in a dark house with like somebody like putting food through a slit in the house, like the way mail used to be delivered. And he wanted to be in solitude and darkness for 4 days by himself. It's like, that's just the type of person he is. Like that's unlike anybody else. I mean, you've heard of Cam and TJ and other people, for example, when the Steelers were trying to sign Russ last offseason, there were players who were reaching out to Russ and trying to recruit them. Russ talked about that all the time. I think it was Russ. It was like a 2-hour FaceTime with Cam. It's just, with Rodgers, it's different. It's just going to be different. Doesn't matter if it's the Steelers pursuing him, the Giants, the Vikings, doesn't matter. He's just a different dude.
Yeah, I also feel like when you're talking about the Steelers situation, one of the things that the players aren't going to be pushing for this in one direction or the other, but you have to be mindful of the Steelers quarterback room obviously is not complete. So if they go and they get themselves a young guy from another organization, whether it's New England or Detroit or wherever, if they go and bring that player in, and then they go and get, I'm going to get his name. Hang on. Tyler, old guy.
Just think of if you were to stick that finger in an electrical socket, you'd be shocked, wouldn't you?
Oh, that's good. That same finger. All right, Tyler Shock. All right, so let's say they get Tyler Shock, who's the ripe old age of 25. Heading into the draft. But that either of those players, whether it's random New England / Detroit guy or Shock, comes into Latrobe and just kills it and shows you they're a little bit more advanced than maybe you thought. That does happen, regardless of what kind of impression they make from college or combines. And then you say, all right, well, we're just going to have them kind of waiting in the wings. We're going to keep working with them. We're going to have this one be a 2. We're going to have this one be a 3. And we're going to keep busy with them. And let's just say, argument's sake, that Mason goes out there and just falls apart. No. All right. And meanwhile, Tyler Shock is awesome. He's doing, between his own legs passes and leaping up over the line and really just blowing everybody away. You want to be able to advance that young player at that young player's pace, not at Aaron Rodgers' pace. You see what I'm saying? You don't want to bury them.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, and I'm going to continue. And the more and more I've thought about this, because I did a little before I started my Darius Slay, just hours upon hours of film watching today. I really started to do a little bit of homework already. Now, granted, there's a whole college season to be played, but I started doing my homework already on the 2026 draft class when it comes to the quarterbacks, and I really think fans need to start accepting the fact that no matter what happens at quarterback this season, whether it's Aaron Rodgers, whether it's Tyler Shock, whether it's Jackson Dart, whether it's Quinn Ewers or Riley Leonard or Will Howard or any of these guys in the draft, or if it's Joe Flacco, I don't care who it is. The future at quarterback is most likely and should be next year's draft class. That should be the end goal.
Next year's. The Pittsburgh draft.
Yes, absolutely. And it's not just because it's in Pittsburgh. It's just because it's going to be a better draft class. I've seen scoffs at whenever I've mentioned Drew Aller. Some of that is probably because there are Pitt fans watching this. And
no, I've scoffed too, Chris.
Okay.
As long as we're clear.
That's fine. But I started going back through. Drew Aller took a gigantic step forward last year for Penn State. And I think he needs to step up in big games a little bit more often, and he's got to fix some mechanicals and some.
So does his head coach, but yes,
that's
part of that.
That's part of it too. But then you look at some of the other guys. I think I got the pronunciation down of the kid from Tennessee, Nico Iamaleava, something like that. Either Nico. I'm just gonna call him Nico.
Yeah, I was gonna say that'll do.
Yeah, Nico, and then the kid from LSU, and then obviously Arch Manning. Like, it's going to be a better quarterback class next year, man. But that's the one that everybody needs to be paying attention to. Take a guy this year for sure. 3rd round, 4th round, take a guy. But it's a shot in the dark. It's throwing darts against a dartboard, hoping you hit a bullseye.
Yeah, Rick Love says of Mason, he went from nervous in the pocket to standing in the pocket, stepping up confident in what he was seeing. Confidence was born of the hard work. The pocket was just an intensive focus. He knew he needed to get it out of his game. Yep. You watch 2019, you don't even recognize the player. Mm-mm. And that was part of what did him in 2019. Although having somebody club him over the head and then another concussion and all that other stuff. Yeah, Milko says, why can't Mason be our Tommy Maddox? For anybody who doesn't know what the reference is, Tommy Maddox was the bridge guy to get to Ben. Mm-hmm. And in fact, a lot of people forget this, but when Ben was drafted, he did not start right away. Nope. Meaning that season. And Maddox was supposed to be the guy. Maddox got hurt. Ben steps in. Ben looked awesome. Everything goes great for Ben. Ben finally has one rotten game. Mm-hmm. One rotten game. Guess which game it was?
I'm trying to remember.
It was the Super Bowl. He was terrible.
Oh yeah, well yeah. I was thinking of his rookie season.
No.
Just hard to find one when they go 15-1.
Yeah, exactly. But just the Super Bowl was just wow.
It was terrible.
And we never saw that version of Ben again. By the way, to his credit, he really rose up.
He gets dogged for that performance in the Super Bowl, but they don't get there without him.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what everybody was telling him afterward, too, was like, hey, kid, not only did you get us here, but you're going to get us here again. And guess what? Yeah, he did. And the next time he was only the best player on the field, which was saying something, considering how his counterpart was doing and how all the wide receivers and Santonio and Larry Fitz and everybody. Deborah says it's different because it's all about Rodgers and he's the one who made it that way. The Steelers aren't like that. And that's true. That's true. Yeah. I think that's what came out today. And can I get a little bit conspiratorial here?
Go ahead.
Not that Cam is incapable of speaking for himself, to say the least. But
that's why he has his own podcast.
But right, exactly. Yeah. And a good one too, by the way. Check it out. And not all of the athlete podcasts are very good. Cam's is very good.
It is.
And there's just a possibility that was not an isolated thought, isolated conversation. Yeah. There's been plenty of that happening in Steelers land over the past month or so. And, we'll see how that ends up. Carol says, I can't see Rodgers in Latrobe. He'll be in a hotel with his entourage. Well, Latrobe has hotels, but I get what you're saying. She means one of these hotels.
To be fair on that, again, I try to be as objective as possible here. Some people said the same thing about Russell Wilson, and that he did not do that. Because there was the whole thing about Russ needing his own parking space and everything else, like in his own place during training camp when he was in Denver, and that did not happen in Latrobe with the Steelers.
Well, he had his big posse and everything. I just don't think it crossed into football land. Like I would see it here.
Correct.
Okay, when he's going out to restaurants and stuff like that, he's got the rock star wife or whatever, and he's just doing his thing. Yeah. But I didn't see any of that, and apparently you didn't either. Carry over into the football setting. He didn't big time people. To say the least.
He did not. No, he did not.
He did not big time people.
He had Spencer Anderson in his posse. I mean, Spencer Anderson's like what, the 7th or 8th guy on the offensive line.
Actually, he was in Spencer Anderson's posse. Let's get that right, pal.
Oh, okay. I love Spencer, man. He's one of my favorite guys to talk to in the locker room.
He's pretty cool.
He's as real as it gets, man.
He is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Spence never big timed anybody either, by the way. As long as we have that cleared up. Garrett Slingerland wants you, Chris, to put Luke Altmaier on your radar for next year's draft. I think he can be the guy.
I'm going to be putting as many guys as I possibly can. Now, obviously, the quarterback studying for next year is going to have to be put on hold, like once the wheels get turning for the upcoming Steelers season. But you can bet I'm going to be putting more hours into watching college football this upcoming season, because I'm going to be, especially if it's very, very clear, regardless of what happens, like after we get through free agency, get through the draft and everything, if we clearly see that the Steelers are looking at the 26th draft for quarterbacks, you can bet I'm going to be spending a lot of time looking at quarterbacks in the upcoming college football season. So it's not going to be just the top 4 or 5 guys.
Nathan here says, hey, DK and Chris, I love the show. As far as you guys can tell, the Steelers are still leaning defensive tackle in the first round, trying to get out of this quarterback talk. Hey, we'll go where you want. Okay, you're the Lone Ranger, to borrow the term from Mike Tomlin in this particular chat, but we can do that. I don't know that I've heard from anybody inside the organization or from Chris or anyone that they're leaning defensive tackle. I've heard that that's one of the positions, and this is by necessity, that they're very much in on, because you have to be, given the nature of this class. As far as who they want or whatever, or what position they want, I've not picked up on anything of that nature. Have you, Chris?
No, I haven't heard anything definitive, but it was around the owners' meetings last year, which those are coming up in a couple of weeks, by the way. That's whenever I heard the Steelers are going to be, they want to tackle in the first round. Like, that's what I heard, that they wanted to tackle in the first round. And I reported that immediately. I kept saying that, pounding the table. This is what they want. This is what I'm hearing. This is what they want. And lo and behold, they took Troy Fautanu in the first round. So we could hear something soon on that, possibly. Or they could really just
be transparent. They really do. It's just kind of funny.
Yeah. Or they could, for once, hold their cards close to the vest, and because there are a few different positions they could go after, honestly.
Or they might not know, Chris. That's the other thing. I mean, they might just say, the old BPA approach, best player available, and whoever it is that makes it to us, here's our board. We don't really care about position this, position that.
Yeah.
Everybody else is gone. We want this guy. Or they might say, we're comfortable trading down because we feel that we value a guy that we don't think anybody else is going to take. It's a little bit of a risk, but you pick up more picks along the way. Scorpio asks, what would it take in a trade to get a second round pick back? George Pickens.
Possibly. I don't even
You're
know
not getting a first rounder for George.
No way. I don't even know if he would get a second, because DK Metcalf was traded for a second. And I think DK Metcalf has way more trade value than George Pickens does.
You would think so, but George is younger, and
he's younger, but he also comes with a lot more baggage than because a lot of Metcalf stuff that like you have to deal with is on the field, not off the field. And Pickens, it's both on and off the field. And so I'm not saying a team wouldn't be desperate. I'm not saying it's completely. I'm I'm more convinced of a 3rd round pick for George, but if you can get him for a second, I might be all over that, especially if you can get Matthew Golden or Emeka Egbuka in the 1st round, because I like both of those guys.
Yeah, and the second guy out of those guys is a wide receiver for anybody who doesn't know. So
Matthew Golden is too, and he actually.
I didn't know they both were. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
you like him better?
I think so. He seems like he's a more versatile guy than Egbuka, even though I like Egbuka too, because I feel like I like both guys. I think if the Steelers ended up with either one of those receivers in the 1st round, it's a win.
I make a perennial vow not to do any draft digging until May. Jared says, serious question. Why has Pat Meyer been able to keep his job after the offensive line has made moderate progress at best, over recent years? The correct answer, technically, to what you're asking, Jared, is it because he still has a contract. I'm sorry. I'm past, trying to figure out other stuff there. They will keep guys for the duration of their contracts. We have seen that time and time and time again, and it takes a virtual act of God to get someone fired in the middle of those, as we saw with Matt Canada. So that's the actual answer. Now, beyond that, I happen to agree with you as it relates to, how did you put it here? Moderate progress at best. That might be a little bit generous. You can't, think about this. I mean, obviously we're not going to agree on this, but
yeah, that's fine.
We don't know what Troy Fautanu is going to be. We saw some nice early signs. Okay. Mm-hmm. We have to give credit. You can't have it both ways for Zach Frazier. Yep. You have to give credit for a 4th round pick in Mason McCormick jumping in and being what he is. I don't know that I'd be giving anybody credit for Isaac Seumalo. This is kind of a completed product by the time he gets. Okay, so what you have is you give Meyer credit for the first year of Broderick Jones, but you give Meyer blame for the massive regression that followed. So, and I think that's kind of where we are. So what is that? Is that moderate progress, moderate regress? I guess you could have it either way.
That's kind of where I'm at on this. Is more of what you said is, yes, people will look at Broderick Jones not developing the way you've wanted him to over the first 2 years, but you forget about Zach Frazier. And by the way, Pat Meyer loved Zach Frazier throughout the draft process, and that he had a hand in him moving up their draft board. He also had a hand in scouting all of the right tackles in the draft class last year, Troy Fautanu being one of them. In Mason McCormick, going from being at an FCS school to being a 4th round pick to starting a lot more games than they were planning and being okay. There were some growing pains, not denying that whatsoever. There were some rough moments out there. But again, they didn't draft him to be a year 1 starter, and that's what he was thrust into because of James Daniels' injury. So I don't think it's as bad as people think it is. They just think that, the offensive line is bad because Broderick Jones is bad. It's like, no, that's not the way it works. It's a young offensive line that has to grow and develop altogether. This is a sink or swim year for Broderick Jones. I'm not denying that whatsoever.
It really is. Do or die was the way one individual high up in that hierarchy described it for me. Do or die. He's got to be able to do it. He's got to be able to get it done. And I'm going to keep saying this because this is now going to be the second Spencer Anderson reference on this show. In case you thought we were just doing quarterbacks today, second Spencer Anderson reference. Okay. Is it if Spence can come in ready to compete as a swing tackle, not the universal all the way across the line, swing tackle. Okay. And he can push to whatever extent he'd need to be pushed, Fautanu, and he can push Jones to the limit, if not even going all the way and unseating him.
Yep.
Then he will be doing the Steelers quite the favor. He really will.
Not only that, but you talk about a draft. I love the draft wins. When you get a guy who is taken in the 7th round and you can turn him into a player, those are some of my favorite players, like Brett Kiesel. And who was another 7th rounder that was from the middle of last? Was it Vince Williams, or was he a 6th rounder?
No, Vinny was a 6, and Kiesel was a 7.
Yeah,
and
that's another guy I'm thinking of too.
One thing that Kevin Colbert used to tell me this story a lot was that he'd be sitting at the draft table and somebody would say, "Oh, let's just trade the 7th rounder or whatever," and then Colbert would stop the meeting and say to everybody, "You can actually picture this."
Yeah.
How would you feel about trading a young Brett Kiesel for that guy. And then everybody like, okay, Dad. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, those are my favorite. And again, if you can turn, that's why like sometimes when you see these mock drafts, I've seen like you see all kinds of weird comments, but you see why are you taking him in the 7th round? I'm like, dude, it's the 7th round.
It's like, the 7th round, yeah.
Like, but that's where you can find dude. Corey Trice, 7th round pick. Now, granted, higher rated guy, but injuries had him fall that far.
Injuries knocked him down, and justifiably so. Mario says, DK, it sounds like you're out on Broderick. No, please do not misinterpret that. Okay, I don't believe Chris is either, not to speak for him. Okay, this is someone who has a world of talent and things that you cannot acquire through hard work. Okay, you're either born with them or you're not. Broad can do some amazing things on the field. Athletically, he has the natural size, the natural strength. And I don't care what it is that you see from him sometimes body language-wise. He cares. He cares. I don't know that I've heard from anybody who say, yeah, that guy, he's kind of out to lunch or whatever. He cares. What he does, and not to get all offensive lining on everybody, but what he does, he'll make the first play. He'll make the initial block or the initial push, and he thinks it's over because that's how he was able to grow up and go through college and everything, because he was so much bigger and stronger than everybody else that the play was over. In the NFL, it's not. They might actually be suckering you in to make that first play so that they can just dip right around you. So am I out on him? No. But am I out on Meyer if he doesn't get that squared away and you put that much draft capital and everything else into Broad? Maybe. We got one more here. Chris. We're going to take this one here from Dex because it's a good one. He calls you Matt, first of all, which is hilarious. I guess he thinks you're Matt Williamson.
I wish I was the smartest Matt. I wish I knew.
I think we all wish that.
Yeah.
So anyway, so he says, so Matt, where do you see the state of our running back room going? Are the Steelers going to rely on a running back from the draft to have an effective room?
I mean, it's a good plan because first off, they put a 2nd round tender on Jaylen Warren, so he's not going anywhere. Nobody's risking a 2nd round pick to steal Jaylen Warren away from the Steelers. So he's coming back and he'll be RB1. But the draft can absolutely produce RB2, and I would even say possibly be a 1B to 1A if Warren is 1A, because it depends. Well, it depends on where you take him. If for whatever reason Ashton Genty falls to the Steelers, or he's still there at 18th or 19th, you absolutely get ahead of the Broncos and you get him. Like, you're talking about a possible all-pro running back. And then 2nd round, if you get back into the 2nd round, there are some good guys there. Quinshon Judkins out of Ohio State, Iowa's Caleb Johnson. In the 3rd round, I really like DJ Giddens out of Kansas State. I really like Devin Neal out of Kansas. Like, there are going to be options in the draft, in day 2, even early in day 3 for a guy. It's just that type of a class. It's one of those rare running back classes that's deep. And so, yeah, yes, you can get that guy to go with Warren.
You can, but here's my outline on this is that Jalen's your 1. Yeah. I believe that Kenneth Gainwell opens up as your 2, and here's why. If you're going to play running back for the Steelers, you got to do what?
You got to pass protect. And no matter who you get in this draft, you are not going to sell this head coach on your ability to pass protect in Latrobe. You got to prove it. Yeah.
You're not going to sell him on it in the preseason. You're not going to sell him on it in September. Now, I can see a scenario where that player continues to develop this and goes and wins backs on backers in Latrobe and makes a real impression from the blocking standpoint and eventually bypasses Gainwell. But when I think of Gainwell, don't forget too that when he was in Philadelphia, he was stuck behind Saquon, right? But he also was a kickoff guy.
Yep.
And there's a real role for him, even if he isn't RB2, as you work your way deeper into this. So that's all the time we have for today, Chris. And we'll see you tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's do it.
All right. Lots of business to take care of here for you YouTube people who are still with us. And always appreciate you hanging around for the business portion of the show. The boss had the numbers up here. Oh, here they are. We are now at 1409 for membership. So again, almost halfway to the goal of 3,000 before the start of training camp. That would be a really cool thing to get here. I just see now that S4000 came in with another hefty contribution of 1999s and just says, and this is a great way to bring things up in the final segment of the show, is can we please give Cam Heyward a round of applause, a cyber round of applause for his comments on Aaron Rodgers. Amen. You know, I'm going to echo something that Chris said earlier, which is that I don't get the impression that Cam was, stick it to him or whatever. I think it was way more just, I'm not going to do anything here about this. Let's just get moving. Whatever it is, let's just get moving. Brent Haynes says, for all the first-time viewers, we're building an awesome community here with the very best live show. Be sure to join. It's only 99 cents a month. If you want to try it for a month, just accept a gift. You don't have to do anything to accept the gift. It'll just get assigned to you. If you want to come in and get your own and have it be something that sticks with you, the place to go, it's a web address, is dkps.net/join. See it right over Brent's name there? dkps.net/join. Boss is admonishing me over here because I was typing it on the screen. She's like, it's on the screen all the time. Well, there it is. Frank Rice wants to know the phone number at our shop. Just come down here, Frank. 224 Fifth Avenue.
For the membership, he has to go to the link.
For the membership is what?
Read his text.
I did. What are you saying?
He wants to get a membership. He needs to get it at that link.
dkps.net/join is where to get your membership. That's where. You don't have to come to the shop to get it. If you want to come and say hello, yeah, she's saying we're happy to have you if you want to come down here. Barber says, barber's not hard to find. That's true. Sometimes the barber shows up here, totally unannounced, toting the Turners. Don't think we'll ever forget that one, Barber. We're going to go through here and take care of some business. Carrie always comes in with one gift to pass out to somebody. Very cool of Carrie. I mentioned S4000 coming in with a 1999. Jeffrey comes in with 5. Jared with 10. Jared's been with us now for 10 months, so maybe that was the matching impact here. Post comes in as a new member. We appreciate that. An old member, so to speak, is 412 at 19 months. Rick outdoes him by 1 month. I see that I missed another contribution one here from that one boy 23 says, if by chance we bring back Russell Wilson, would you sign Tyler Lockett for chemistry? And Roman Wilson's mentor, also love the show. You're not doing stuff for chemistry at this point. I don't know how else to phrase that. You need to fill the roster out. You're not doing it on intangibles now, and you're certainly not doing something to placate a player that you have a building full of people who they don't want him back. So the barber comes in with his obligatory one gift, then another one, and then
Third one.
Matt comes in. Oh, that's him also.
Him.
Okay, yeah. And then a fourth one. He has all these different aliases here. We're on to him. DJ is a member for 22 months. DJ also gifted one. For all I know, that's also barber.
It's not.
It's not? No. Okay, so that's legit. So we have we had ourselves, here's a $2 contribution just this second coming in from 6-4. We're in good shape, halfway to the membership drive. We appreciate having all of you here. We appreciate the feedback. We appreciate the attempts to steer us away. I did see one that I had meant to address that it came earlier as related to what the perks are. And I thought here it is. Knight Rider gets the last word today.
And we clicked on it at the same time.
Knight Rider gets the last word today. It says, what perks does being a member bring? The perks, for the most part, are things that are going to be future-based whenever we start moving to a members-only videos format. Not all of it, but a lot of it. A members-only chat. Not all of it, but some of it. that we're going to be doing. There's also free fun emojis. There's also discounts that are available. Fun stuff. Nothing too serious.
Support the show, so
and that's the big thing here is that it's 99 cents a month and you're supporting the shows. You're making sure that this thing stays on. And man, she just wants to do this segment today. So tomorrow we're just going to let her do it. Is that a deal? So I'll be all talked out anyway, because we have Ramon Foster show live tomorrow.
No, you're not going to, nope, I'm behind the camera.
Oh no, we're getting her. She's going to, no, you're talking so much today. You're just going to be on here. Look, we're just going
You're
to.
too slow. You're reading the words wrong.
Oh, I thought I was turning the camera. I'm not. The camera's over there. All right, guys, this thing's getting out of control. We'll be back tomorrow with the Ramon Foster show and with this show. Ramon is at 2 p.m. Eastern time. This one is at 4 p.m. always Eastern time, and we'll see you then. All right.